But of course, if you do go to sleep, there's always the danger you may be replaced by a pod person, which is exactly the sort of precarious predicament that you find yourself in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Wow, an actual segue, Scott.
Yes.
Woohoo! We're not generally fans of remakes around here, but when a film considered in many places to be amongst the best remakes ever also happens to fit our topic for the month, it seems worth taking a look. That remake is, of course, 1978's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, based on Jack Finney's novel The Body Snatchers and first filmed in 1956. Amoeba-like beings leave their planet and drift through space, falling on the Earth in rain, and particularly on San Francisco, where scientist Elizabeth Driscoll, Brooke Adams, picks one of the unusual flowers that have grown from the amoebic rain. She takes it home, puts it in a glass next to the bed, and goes to sleep. When her dentist boyfriend Jeffrey, Art Hindle, begins acting very oddly the next morning, the last, or at least seventh or eighth thing she's going to think of to explain it is that the flower created an entirely new, identical body, transferred all of his memories over, dissolved the old human body, and left a perfect replica simply missing emotion. More fool her then, as that is exactly what happened. Though she's definitely aware that something is wrong, as Jeffrey is no longer Jeffrey. Alike, yet not alike. She enlists the help of her friend, City Health Inspector Matthew Bennell, Donald Sutherland, who at first asks her to see his friend, the famed psychiatrist David Kivner, Leonard Nimoy, and his weird wee leather thing, that I assume is a visual clue that he's a rotter. What was that?
I've seen... Isn't that a sort of... more like a sketching glove, which I guess maybe we'd be using if he was signing a lot of things. It stops your... because it was covering his pinky, right? So it was... I don't know.
Now his middle two fingers. It kind of like those big guards used for archery, but flimsier and on the wrong side. But
yes, then no, I don't know.
I don't know, because he wears it a lot. Of strange affectation, and I couldn't work out what it was. Maybe it's really obvious and I'm just being stupid, but I had no idea what that was for.
Maybe he just had sore fingers.
Anyway, I may be straying again.
Maybe it's a complex allegory for something.
Fingers.
Yes.
For fingers? No, wait. No, I've got nothing. My brain is not functioning. Kibner persuades Elizabeth that her feelings were a manifestation of a desire to leave the relationship, which she buys for about 3 seconds. Numerous encounters, including seeing a full-size Jeff Goldblum replica, key Matthew and Elizabeth into what is going on, and they try to warn people, only to realise it's far, far too late for that. So, Scarper it is. Run away! Given its themes, homogeneity, paranoia, conspiracy, metaphorically sleeping while bad things happen, inevitability of change, and a whole bunch more, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is open to a multitude of interpretations. A criticism at the time, was that it was laughably literal, which is frankly baffling as it could be about so many things. The 1956 version was considered by some to be about McCarthyism, and by some others to be about the loss of autonomy both in the US and the USSR. The 1978 adaptation could also be about at least some of that, or about city life, or about Watergate according to some interpretations, and again, numerous others. You could even, without much squinting, interpret it as nature being bad for you. The truth is, of course, that it's about the pleasures of conformity and the importance of trends. It's also a personal statement about the pod people themselves. Hey Bennell, try getting a reservation at Dorsia now, you stupid health inspector. Because Invasion of the Body Snatchers is so potentially broad, I have little interest in finding something specific. I am, instead, happy to simply enjoy the film as a well-produced, well-acted sci-fi horror. Special effects are used sparingly, but when they are, they're quite effective. Donald Sutherland staving in the head of his own replica is a particularly creepy image. And it's interesting how eerie someone simply pointing and making an odd noise can be, given certain context. Sutherland in particular is great, and his reaction to someone being knocked down may actually be the most natural and realistic I've ever heard. that may seem such an odd and oddly specific thing to mention, but it really struck me. But the core cast are all really good. Perhaps not essential viewing, but really quite enjoyable. Approved.
Yes, I guess, again, I like this well enough. I don't have anything particularly complex or meaningful to say about it. In a way, this has fallen into the same bucket as Dawn of the Dead for me, and it's one of these films that gets held up as, oh, it's an allegory for this, that, the other, and a lot of the times I think about it, and I think maybe it is just a film about space amoebas and pod people, and not really about anything more complex than it is. I think it's one of these rare films that's so simple, but seems to be giving people enough interpretation to put any kind of spin on it they like. And I think maybe it's getting a reputation for having meaning that does not actually warranted in the text of it, but it's fun enough to watch, and Donald Sutherland's really good in it. What else can I say about it? Not all that much. I enjoyed it well enough. I saw this decades ago, and I suspect I may never go back to it again. It's the better remake. This was remade relatively recently with Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman. Is that right?
The Invasion, that was called.
Yeah, I think that was a remake, and it was. Again, it was also fine. I think I've seen the 58 version. It was fine too. It's a good concept for a film. It has some interesting sort of freaky moments. It's probably, for my money, taking a lot more from the horror playbook than it does science fiction. At least in terms of all the way it's actually structured as a film and all that stuff. It's way more horror based than it is science fiction. But regardless, it's an enjoyable rip-roaring little yarn, and it is worth spending some time with if you haven't done so already. I'm not sure. This is probably the best of the versions of them, I would say. It's probably the most rounded of them. But yes, it's worth a look. I can't get all that excited about it, but I did enjoy watching it, so yes. Yeah, give it a go.
Yes, I just see this not as like one of these films full of meaning. It's a solidly entertaining film with an interesting, scary idea that people could be replaced, and as I said, and you've said too, it's just so broad in terms of the things that it really could apply to anything.
Yes.
So that people trying to read stuff into this, it's like, nah, because like the idea of being asleep while bad things happen, that could apply to much anything in the world.
Yes.
There is no there's no strong thing there. And it's best, it's like, it's a fun film. And also is perhaps the source of one of the single greatest frames of cinema ever.
Yes.
Which is that very famous frame of Donald Sutherland with his mouth open and his hand out pointing.
Yes, but will almost certainly be the album art for this this podcast episode, but yes.
One would hope so.
Yes.
That or the Daft Punk helmet. I think it's between those two.
Yes.
Yeah, there's not really a lot to explore in that, and it's like, it's fun.
Yes.